So, today we're diving into a really profound concept from Buddhist psychology, the mind of an enlightened being, an arahant. We're going to break down what's actually happening mentally when someone has completely broken free from the cycle of rebirth. And you'll see how their actions, even the good ones, are fundamentally different from our own. It all really kicks off with this one simple question. You see an enlightened person do something kind, and on the surface, it looks exactly like when you or I do something kind. But is the mental event behind that action the same? Well, the answer is a fascinating no, and figuring out why is exactly what we're going to get into today. Okay, so here's our game plan to really wrap our heads around this. We're going to peel it all back in 5 steps. First, we'll define this unique type of mind. Then, we'll dig into what it means to be chemically neutral. After that, we'll see how it's broken down into 8 distinct types, look at its specific job in the mind, and finally, check out the mental ingredients that make it all happen. All right, let's jump right in with our first section, the enlightened mind's action. To really understand this, we need to get familiar with a specific Pali term that just perfectly captures the idea, Mahā Chitta. So what in the world does that mean? Well, Mahā Chitta translates to great functional consciousness. Let's break that down. Kriya means the mind is purely functional, it's just doing a job. But the really crucial part is that it's also karmically neutral. This means the mind acts, but it doesn't create any future karmic results. It's not a result of past actions either. It's just an action that exists purely and only in the present moment. And here's the thing, and this is really important. This state of mind is exclusive. It only arises in Buddhas and Arahants, beings who have totally uprooted craving and have broken the cycle of rebirth for good. For them, even a good deed isn't creating a positive future anymore. It's just the right action, right now, flowing naturally from their liberated state. This whole idea of neutrality is so central, it absolutely deserves its own section. So, what does karmically neutral really mean? The best way I can think of to describe it is as an action that leaves no echo. This slide just lays out the core difference perfectly. For most of us, when we do a good deed, our mind creates a karmic seed. It's like planting a flower that's going to bear fruit later on. But for an arahant, this functional mind is like a sterile flower. It's still beautiful, it still serves its purpose, but it produces 0 seeds for the future. The action happens, and then it just fades, leaving no trace behind. And this quote from our source material just nails it. An arahant's mental energy isn't about building up a future, good or bad. It is purely functional. Its consciousness perfected for whatever task is at hand, with absolutely no baggage attached. So you might be thinking, if this mind is so unique, how do we even begin to analyze it? Well, Buddhist psychology is incredibly precise. It doesn't just stop at a general definition. And that brings us to our third section, the eightfold classification, which gives us a systematic map of this enlightened consciousness. The first way these states are sorted is pretty simple. It's by the feeling that comes along with them. Is the mind feeling a sense of joy or somanassa, or is it in a state of deep calm and balance, what we call upekkha or equanimity? From there, the map gets even more detailed. We add 2 more layers. First, we ask, is this state of mind connected to wisdom or not? And second, did the action just pop up spontaneously, or did something need to prompt it? Put those all together and you get the complete framework. And boom, here it is, all laid out in one clear table. This shows us the 8 distinct types of this functional consciousness. You can see how all those variables we just talked about, joy or equanimity, with or without knowledge, prompted or unprompted, all mix and match. So for example, type 1 is joyful, wise, and spontaneous. Meanwhile, type 8 is equanimous, doesn't have that specific wisdom, and it needs a prompt. It's this level of detail that shows you just how precisely this mental landscape has been mapped out. Now, hold on, because this is a really important clarification. When we say knowledge, or jnana here, we're not talking about knowing a bunch of facts. In this specific context, it means the deep foundational wisdom that truly understands the law of karma, that principle of action and result. So we've got the classifications down, but how does this all actually work in the mind? Let's switch gears from the what to the how. Where does this consciousness fit into the moment-to-moment flow of our experience? Okay, so this is a simplified map of how your mind processes pretty much anything. It starts with some kind of sensory input. You see something, you hear something. Your mind then receives it, investigates it, and determines what it is. And that leads to step 4, javana, or impulsion. This is where Mahā Chitta does its work. It's the dynamic, decisive moment where the mind commits and acts on the object. You can think of it as the engine of the whole process, right before the experience is finally registered. So its main job is to be that impulsive, driving force. But what's truly incredible, just mind-blowing really, is the cognitive range of the 4 types that have wisdom. They have the power to take any conceivable object as their focus. Other states of mind, physical matter, abstract ideas, even the ultimate reality of nibbana itself. The scope is just limitless. All right, for our final piece of the puzzle, let's pop the hood. Let's look at the specific mental ingredients, the sadasikas, that all combine to create these amazing states of mind. It turns out there are some very specific rules about what's in the mix, and this is crucial. These states do not contain the mental factors for abstaining from bad deeds, like right speech or right action, but they can and do contain the illimitables, things like compassion and appreciative joy, because an enlightened being can absolutely focus their mind on those beautiful qualities. So why? Why are those moral guardrails excluded? Well, think about it. Their job is to prevent you from doing unwholesome things. But an arahant's mind has already completely uprooted the very causes of unwholesome action. It doesn't need a preventative measure because the possibility itself is gone. The consciousness is purely functional, not moral, in a karma-creating way. So how many of these ingredients can be present at once? Get this. At its most complex, in those states that are both joyful and wise, a single moment of consciousness can contain a staggering 35 distinct mental factors, all working together in perfect harmony. And at its simplest, that number just drops a little bit to 33. This happens in the states that are equanimous and aren't connected to that foundational wisdom we talked about. And the difference between that high of 35 and the low of 33 is actually super straightforward. The simpler states are just missing 2 specific factors. The first is rapture, which makes sense. It's not there when the feeling is equanimous instead of joyful. And the second is wisdom, which is absent in those knowledge-dissociated types. Simple as that. So, let's bring this all home. After all these details, what's the ultimate takeaway? Well, the existence of Mahā Chitta represents the final goal of the entire path, the total, complete end of karma creation. It's the signature of a mind that is truly free, a mind that will never again be reborn. And that leaves us with a final thought to ponder. We've looked at all the intricate mechanics, but what would it actually feel like to act so perfectly, so completely in the present, that you create not a single ripple in the future? What would it feel like to act with total freedom? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.